Hello, everybody. Hello. How are you? My name is Stephen D. Kelly. This is Stephen D. Kelly Show. We are TruthCat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. And once again, it's Thursday. What is it? June 13th. Tonight's show, let's see, is going to be a mixture, I suppose. You know, I noticed that a lot of you have been putting some work into trying to, expand our audience, bring some more listeners to the show. Judging by who's listening live right now, I'd say they're either late or they're not here. But it's a daunting task, I'll tell you. It's always a daunting task to try to come up with something worthwhile and important to share with you guys. The last couple of weeks, of course, I have been focusing on this Phoenician aspect, this historical stuff. And just to do a quick refresher, motivational wise, I think what really prompted this was the constant use of the term anti-Semitic. Something is anti-Semitic, anti-Jews, anti-Semitic. And, my research, I keep going back to the Phoenicians. People say Semites is Phoenicians, Well, I had to pursue this, and I've already discussed this in the show, but the thing is that this is some powerful stuff here, very powerful. I could say that the very fact that we're even talking about things like this and that this is becoming part of our dialogue is extraordinary. But at the same time, as we get deeper into secrets and information, ancient information that has been hidden, that tells us more about our enemy and helps us to understand our enemy, it becomes somewhat overwhelming because, to be honest with you, as exciting as information as this is to me, I can't see how we can get other people to even think about it. I mean, first of all, it's like TruthCat, it's simple, it's easy to spell. Jews, 3 letters, it's easy to say. Phoenician, how many people can even spell Phoenician? I've seen it spelled different ways. 2 eyes, 1 eye, kind of confusing. But the more I learn about this culture, the history of the culture, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit more, but it almost seems unnecessary. Because, as I said, it's such a complex thing to have to teach people. It's interesting, for sure. Now, I know in my research, I've learned that the Phoenicians, they go back to at least 2500 BC, but now they're saying it's possible these guys go back quite a bit farther, 6000 BC. One of the things that's kind of fascinating about ancient history like that is the various names that they assign the ages, like the Stone Age, the Copper Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and so on, and the various different sub-ages. Obviously, there were ages between the Stone Age and the Copper Age, but these are very, very important in the development of humans. And I know as modern humans, you don't think about this for a second, but at the same time, as I mentioned the other day, a couple shows back, it was learning about silver. I wanted to learn about silver, and I wanted to learn about the extraction, and I wanted to learn about mercury and metallurgy and ancient metallurgy. And I learned about that guy that developed the system over there in Mexico. They called it the patio method to extract silver from low-grade ore. And it used mercury. And, mercury, of course, has been around for a long time. In these ancient tombs, they find it plentiful amounts of it in China and Mesoamerica and different places. And they had some crazy ideas about what it was for. But at the same time, I think that there are metallurgical properties and other sorts of properties that we've forgotten. I think that there was something more to this metal than simple amalgams and base metals and metallurgy. There's something definitely going on. Now, I think that the thing about the Phoenicians that is the most important, that seems to have been completely skirted, at least historically, is the human sacrifice. You know, we're used to this term. We think about it. We think about the Aztecs. We think about their human sacrifice, what they did with the battle and what have you. But the thing is that these guys, these Phoenicians, from the standpoint of our Bible and the standpoint from the influence on Solomon and all the cultures that came thereafter, the fact that they went back so far, some things didn't change at all, like the altars that they used for doing their human sacrifice, the topeths, the same altars that you can see everywhere. They also had in ancient times. Some of the only structures standing from these ancient colonies that the Phoenicians built all over the world are these altars, stacked up stones with a relatively flat surface for laying somebody or a baby or a child or whatever down and killing it prior to burning it. They don't even, the archaeologists, what have you, they don't even flinch when they say, oh, and this is what this is right here. The point is that this never changed. Our number one focus of our mission, of course, is to end this Satanism, which requires these blood sacrifices in any form. And over the centuries, this stuff has become so entrenched in so many different cultures that it's really hard to point back. You know, one thing I noticed about this in trying to study these Phoenicians, and I've said this before, is that when a country is conquered, Syria, Babylon, Persia, Phoenicia, Egypt, whatever, they don't go away. They become absorbed, and half the time, like we know with the kingdom of Solomon, the predecessors of Solomon, that they paid a tribute. They stayed alive by essentially paying ransom, I guess you could call it, but they were taxed. So, for instance, in Phoenicia proper, modern-day Lebanon, which is being the brunt of an attack by the IDF as we speak, there were many famous cities that still are there, but one of them, of course, was Tyre, Tyre, and I was looking into the history of that place, and of course, Tyre was an island at one time, and it was attacked by Alexander the Great, and in order for him to conquer this island, he basically built a jetty that ran about 800 yards out to the perimeter of this island. Well, that jetty has now caused that island to be a peninsula. But the thing is that even though that was a Phoenician city with Phoenician citizens and Phoenician navy and culture, at the same time, it was considered Persian. During that period of time, the Persians controlled it. It's kind of like when the Romans took over Judea, whatever, Israel, and they controlled it. It still operated as Israel. The sacrifices, the old ways, the ways of the fathers, so to speak, they just went underground. So I'm saying that the same thing with Phoenicia and the Carthaginians and these baby killers from way back, they never went away. At least the practices never went away. The ideas never went away. Their religion never went away. You know, one of the things that I noticed that's quite prominent is their Melkart, male deity that they perform all these sacrifices to, which is also very most likely Moloch, and at the same time, this is the basis of the Hercules character. How many movies, how many children's cartoons, how often, how many times has this character of Hercules been propped up as some sort of amusing, entertaining figure, as opposed to a mythological deity that was constantly being offered human sacrifice? as part of the worship to this entity. How is it that an entity that was so closely associated with human sacrifice for so many thousands of years, how has it become the whitewashed character that's celebrated in Disney movies and Schwarzenegger and whoever? How many times have they done that? Nobody says anything bad about this Hercules character. Hercules is a good guy, a hero. How did this happen? You know, when Tyre was conquered by the Greeks, the only people that were spared in the city, everybody was either wiped out, crucified, or sold into slavery, but the only people that were spared were the ones that took refuge in a small section of the island that was a small peninsula unto itself, you could say, that was essentially a massive temple to Hercules. Anybody that took refuge in the temple of Melkart, Hercules, was spared. Now, this was the Greeks, so that would suggest to me that even though these were Phoenicians and at the time considered Persians, they still followed the same God. It didn't matter what their political system, who the ruler was, where the throne was, who had the authority. They had their freedom of religion, and the religion that they worshiped, the religion they practiced, was the Satanism, this human sacrifice stuff, kind of like they do today. And they did it without any sort of interference. So much so that when the Greeks conquered the city and killed everyone, the only one they spared were the ones that they felt a kinship with, the ones that were worshiping or taking refuge in the temple of Hercules that they also worshipped, apparently. And as we know, the Romans did the same thing. Now, the Romans, of course, were the ones that destroyed Carthage. And when we think of Phoenician territory, obviously Lebanon is the real original, but Carthage was a significant territory. And those Romans, when they wiped it out, of course, as legend says, they sowed salt into the ground to make sure that it could never rise up, that the ground would never provide food and sustenance that could possibly feed a human ever again. They hated it that much. Why did they hate it so much? As I've said before, probably because of the human sacrifice and the slavery. Now, as I've said, the history of these guys only really shows them as having gone as far as Spain. But we should also know that that territory that they ran in Spain, that means that Spain was their territory. And just like anywhere else they were, and like anywhere else where their influence and their religion was practiced, that never went away. The genetics probably didn't go away either. Didn't matter who sat on the throne. The people carried this. A very ancient people. Now, I very much suspect that the human sacrifice that took place in Mesoamerica, the Incan, Mayans, and the Aztecs, were all connected to the same group of people because they went everywhere. Why did they go everywhere? Because they were looking for the metal, the copper, the tin, the gold, the silver, and eventually the iron, the cinnabar, the mercury. They knew the secrets. Who taught the Aztecs how to work the gold? We know who taught the Mexicans how to mine the silver and process it. Very fascinating stuff. So it's very possible that the root of all of this satanic worship, this human sacrifice, goes back to the same group. So, without having to spend too much more time on this, I just want to emphasize once again that if we're being called anti-Semites, we need to remind the world what that word means. Because the people of Palestine today, the people that lived in Levant, the Canaanites, that's who we're really talking about. They were these people. They were these Phoenicians. They were baby killers. These Semites have always been baby killers. You can go back to 6000 BC. They were still baby killers. And that has not changed. So the bottom line is that A, we need to use that as a rebuttal to any time somebody tries to defend the name Semite, because to me, there's nothing that you can say about that. Now, to me, the word Semite is like saying you're a cannibal. Now, you may have grown up in New Guinea. You may be coming from some tribe. You may be a human that were previously cannibals. But does that mean that everybody that shares the Semitic culture, the Semitic DNA, is a baby killer? I don't think so. Humans are humans, and I don't think we condemn the people for that. But if they are baby killers, if they are continuing to practice these ideas and these religions, and if it is in their DNA, so be it. But we have to not let these labels and these names be used against us. But like I said, you're not going to be able to convince too many people. And it's a lot of powerful knowledge that I think that we can eventually use and somehow make pay. But for the time being, I think that it's not going to be the golden bullet. I think that ultimately, if anything, this proves that the only way we're going to solve this, the only way we're going to end this isn't through education, but through focus on the mission, which of course is the Getty, because it's only through exposure of what's going on under the Getty will we ever be able to wrap it up in a nice package for everybody to understand. So if we have ancient cultures practicing ancient blood rituals in dark places beneath us, we're not going to be able to articulate that properly, and we're never going to be able to reveal it that well with our words. Ultimately, the only thing that is going to reveal it will be the actual action of physically opening the Getty and exposing what's down there. Now, I know a lot of you have been reaching out and working in a lot of different directions that are potentially very promising, because the enemy certainly is paying a lot of attention to what we're doing, what you're doing, and the enemy knows how this ends up, and the enemy can see that it's really only a matter of time. They can only push their rush into World War III and the nuclear war so fast. Ultimately, I think that we can defeat them prior to them being able to ever pull that off. I think they know that too, and I think that, as I've said before, the only way that that can actually happen is if they give up. And I think that the time is fast approaching where they're going to want to negotiate and try to manage this, kind of like the way Zelensky is trying to get the world to back him up on some sort of peace plan with Russia that basically where Zelensky wins. Kind of the same thing. So as far as our ability or their ability to deal with us in a honest way, I don't think that that's a reality that's going to be very close. But the fact that I think that we are getting to that point is also kind of encouraging, and I know a lot of you find that kind of exciting. But if I had to give you guys a message, at least as far as what you're doing and the work you're doing, I've said this to a few of you already. I need you to focus on your own intuition, your gut, and what it tells you to do, what is right. You can't really wait for me to tell you, and obviously people can make mistakes, and we don't know what the result of those mistakes could be, but the bottom line is ultimately I think that if you are going to develop your psychic skills, if you are going to develop your connection to source, you're going to have to learn to rely more and more on your intuition, on your gut feelings and your own instincts, and learn to use that in the decisions that you make regarding this mission. You're all leaders in that way. All of you. I know you are. I know you feel it. And it's pretty exciting. Again, I said it is kind of humbling to be involved in something that's becoming so powerful and recognized out there. But at the same time, I've said this also many times, you need to do your best to remain flat. And roll with it and flow with it and not be affected emotionally either too much in one way or the other. You can't become too elated every time something exciting happens, and you also have to control your depression and your frustration when things are seeming to not work as fast as you would like them to, or seeing things seem to be very negative. Myself, I'm in kind of a situation like that. I got to tell you, last week, remember, what did I have? I had a monitor and a video card and all this nonsense start to die, and it's been an ongoing struggle. Even today, I was struggling with electronics and technical stuff up until about 30 minutes before the show, which has a lot to do with why I'm a little flustered at the moment. But it's discouraging. It's almost like a conspiracy, I got to tell you. You know, it just makes me wonder. And even if it was, and I would tell you the same thing, is that don't let it bug you, because that's all they can do right now is try to bug us. What happened to me here a little while ago? Yeah, it almost seems like things just want to short out. I'll tell you, my computer, one of the computers I was running as a monitor here, it's Windows 7, and I can't, obviously I can't replace the video card and expect it to work with a Windows 7 computer. I don't think they sell these things. Well, never mind, I'm not going to get into it. But bottom line, it's always something, isn't it? It's always something. And I got to tell you, I know you Jedi out there listening, those of you that are Jedi listening, you know what it's like right now. It's been like this for a while. I don't see a whole lot of change. There have been a few people that have joined us recently. I haven't really been making a big push to bring people into it because things just seem so thick right now, and we are moving. But I gotta be honest with you, I loathe going to bed. I really do not look forward to it. It's not like I try to stay up all night, but I just know every night it's going to be the same thing over and over and over. So that's not a good sales for trying to recruit people I know, but hey, comes with the territory. All right, we've only got 30 minutes, and like I said, I've been a little flustered today trying to deal with these technical issues, and what can I say? Gosh. But at the same time, you guys have got the material already. You've got the shows, and yeah, we're going to have new insights all the time. It's not going to be tonight, though. All right? Move with what you got. Use what you got to keep doing what you're doing. That's the bottom line. What else can I tell you? It's hot. I had to turn off the air conditioner so I could, wouldn't be so loud. But yeah, it's pretty warm. Let's see what else. I need you guys to work a little bit to try to get more people to join. I noticed there's been a lot of people joining the group on Telegram, Occupy the Getty / Stephen D. Kelly. We're up to, 5,676 members. I'm sure that a lot of that has to do because so many of you are reaching out to other groups and you're sharing your information, which is great. But at the same time, I know we are getting a lot of the crypto types in there, so you guys have got to watch out for those scammers. The other thing, of course, is that Twitter has been somewhat stagnant for me, and I'm pretty sure that has to do with, once again, the Trump thing that I didn't really, I kind of wanted to talk about a little bit, but that is an issue that is going to be very difficult for us to get past. These labels, it's like the liberal conservative thing. It's just like trying to convince people that this mafia, that Satanism we're dealing with is Phoenician. It's just going to be hard. The problem with the Trump thing, of course, is that so many people have discarded this whole concept of the man being a convicted felon and completely forgotten about what that means. And whether or not you think that's true or not, the only way that can go away is if he's pardoned, or if the judge comes back and he has another trial and they pull it all back. But the bottom line is it's not going to happen because it did happen. When I hear people, they're talking about it's travesty of justice and all this, like I have to wonder, it's like, which part of this trial, which part of these convictions do you disagree with? Which actual part? When people say it's all lies, it's not true, none of it happened, he's not guilty, he's innocent. Which part is it that he's innocent from? I mean, I've gone so far as to see people that are going to come out and say that he did not have sex with Stormy Daniels, this porn actress. She was a porn actress. He probably didn't have to work too hard to get her up to his room. She did porn. Now, apparently, though, having done porn, whatever, she was the type that had no problem with making problems for him. But the thing is that to suggest that that didn't happen is ridiculous. It's so naive. It's so out of touch with reality. And then there's the part of, even if he didn't do it, he took money out of his company to pay her off and used various different people to facilitate these payments in such a way that it wouldn't be easily discovered. He hid it. That's what he got in trouble for. Malfeasance in business. It's what do they call that? Well, you know what I'm talking about. What is that word? Well, it's fraud to say the least, but either way, embezzlement. Yeah, stealing from the company. If you're using company money to pay off some hooker to keep her mouth shut, and you're trying to hide it from the taxes and hide it in your books and make it look like it was all sort of part of some sort of legitimate thing, well, you're going to accept that and say that's okay because of whatever, because you like the guy. It's just the way it is. And of course, Hunter Biden gets convicted of his gun crap. Gun crap. What about all the nonsense, treasonous stuff that he was doing with Ukraine, etc.? And Fauci, same thing. It's never going to happen. None of this justice will ever happen until you realize that the entire U.S. government is corrupt, part of the problem, enabling the human sacrifice, committing the human sacrifice, is this very Satan. The very Satanism that we're trying to destroy is the thing that is our government. So you have people willing to accept evil because they're in a system involving two parties of the government. Again, the retardation is over the top. I'm hoping that we can get past this, but I really don't see how. And then there's Biden. G7 had a meeting in Italy today. Biden looked like he could barely stand up. He didn't know where he was going. He's shuffling around like he's completely senile, and all the world leaders, the so-called Western leaders, had to kind of shuffle around him and kind of point fingers and direct him and tell him where to go and move very slowly so that they didn't leave him in their wake. It makes us all look really pathetic, and, well, I suppose if it's a metaphor to represent the death of our society, then it's a very apt metaphor indeed. But this criminal, the one that you're going to elect anyway, he says, I'm still voting for Trump. Really, I'm still voting for Trump. This is a bad situation that we're in. It's set the bar so low, as I've said before. You're going to vote for a criminal that can't even vote, that can't own a gun, that can't do any of these things. Would you do business? Would you invest in a company that was run by a convicted felon who was convicted of cooking his books to hide illegal indiscretions? Absolutely incredible. But that's what our country has become. So once again, what do we have left? Occupy the Getty. That's it. That is it. All right, people. I'm going to promise you a better show next week. Hopefully Source will give me something. But like I said, I've been struggling with these computers all week up until showtime. It's a little frustrating. Anyway, I want to thank you guys again for all your hard work. All right. And I'll continue to strive to work harder for you, because I know that that's what really inspires you. So I don't want to discount that. I don't want to forget it. And I certainly don't want you to think that I don't pay attention to what makes you want to be involved. So I'm not sitting on a throne, and I'm not some sort of egotistical, messianic person that's reveling in your whatever you want to call it. This is not a cult, but this is the only religion that you should have right now. Okay? This is the only source of information you should have right now. There's plenty of it out there. I would say that if we're not talking about it, it's not something you should be paying attention to. Same thing for all the people and the talking heads out there. I don't know any of them that are worth a shit to be listening to right now. Okay? That includes Ryan Garcia. All right, people, if you want to help out financially, of course, the PayPal is StephenKelly714@yahoo.com. I do appreciate everything that comes in. And you, of course, have to say friend or family, or I will send it back. And again, if you need my book, you need to talk to me, you need any contact whatsoever, you want to hook up to me because you got a great idea of how we can spread the word and promote the mission, please contact me at my normal email, which is law17gun@aol.com. Okay? And if there's anything else you need, anything you can think of whatsoever, you need healing, please, again, let's focus on that healing. It's really important. I'm not saying it's important for the mission, but I mean that it helps me to help you, and the more people that we can help, the more people, the more attention that we can direct in our direction, in our mission. Okay? Okay, gosh, sometimes I wish I could take question and answers. I know it gets pretty frustrating, especially in the format with what do we got? We got Twitter, because there's just so many dummies. Oh my goodness. Anyway, what are we going to do, right? All right, everybody. Give me 1 second to get my music queued up, and I'll let you all go. And I hope you will join me on the group, and I hope you will be here next week. And all of you that stuck around, a decent number of you are still here. I want to thank you so much. Okay? I do appreciate everything. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your hard work. All right? So, once again, my name is Stephen D. Kelly, and this is the Stephen D. Kelly Show, and we are Truth Cat Radio, www.truthcatradio.com. I'll see you guys next week. Good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.